We're live again.
All right, so we left off with the concept of trust, boundaries, and identity. And I was just talking about trust, that the first person you have to trust is yourself. You have to know where your boundaries are, and then you have to feel comfortable to articulate them. If people respect your boundaries, then that's somebody you can trust. If they don't, if they find some justification or some excuse, then you either don't trust that person at all, or you limit the amount of trust that you can provide that person, because they can only honor your boundaries so far. So for survivors, this is really important to really work on this. In fact, I've had so many clients that when I talk about this, I have a diagram that I use which sort of helps tie it all together. So many clients have said, this is probably one of the best things I've gotten out of therapy so far. And it really does help define the self, as well as allow you to feel safer in the world and know who's safe and who isn't. Now I tell people, you can't smoke in my house. If you really need a cigarette, there's an ashtray on the out on the porch. If I'm in my office, fortunately there's a city ordinance against smoking any kind of a public place, so we don't have to deal with that anymore. But when we first started out, we did. So I would say to my clients who were reaching for the cigarettes, if you can't wait till the end of the session, then we can go outside. And we had one office where we were on the second story, but the back half of the building was only one story. So we had a doorway. We could walk out onto the roof. So sometimes if a client needed a cigarette, we could walk out onto the roof on the back half of the building, and it was private out there, so we could actually continue with our sessions. So sometimes in order to respect the needs of other people, you have to negotiate about where the boundaries are. If I were to go a cross-country road trip with somebody, I don't like country western music, so we're not going to be having the radio blaring country western music. It's just not going to work. So I would suggest that if my co-traveler really needs to listen to country western music, they need to have a CD player and headphones or something, because it's not going to work if I'm hearing it. So you have to negotiate sometimes with people to find a common ground. It's not all about you and where your boundaries are, but it's also communicating to find out where's the middle ground, so that both parties can get as much of what they need as possible without compromising what's important to the other person. And that whole concept of negotiation is a really new concept for survivors. They've never had the right to negotiate their boundaries. So it's something that you might practice with your clients. And when I talked yesterday about the intake form and the contract that we come up with clients, give us 24 hours notice, be on time for your session, that kind of thing. We also have to be on time for our sessions. One of my staff one time years ago, all of his sessions were running 2 hours. So I said to him, what's going on? Your sessions are supposed to be an hour and a half and you're running them for 2 hours. That decreases your availability because your time is taken up with the clients you are seeing, and it also costs us more money per client. So what's that all about? He said, oh, well, my client was really having a bad day and was in a really bad state, and I really felt like I needed to spend more time. And I said, no. It's not about your client, because all of your clients are getting 2 hours. What I think is going on for you is that you're a caring person. You want to see change. You want to see your clients move forward in some way. So you keep extending the session, expecting some kind of miraculous change to occur, but you're not taking an opportunity to model healthy boundaries. So when your clients show up, you need to say, we've got 20 minutes left, let's identify what we really accomplished today, and let's just sort of summarize that. And then you spend the last maybe 10 minutes taking it out of the session. I often ask my clients, what are you going to do this week that's an act of self-care? Well, clients, sometimes they're going to go for a workout, or they're going to go and buy some groceries, or they're going to go and meet a friend for coffee. So as long as they're identifying something that's positive or productive, then I'll encourage them to go out and pursue that activity. So it does two things. It's setting the boundary, because we're winding down, we're closing down, we're shutting down all this stuff that's been stirred up. But we're also articulating the fact that recovery takes place every day of your life, not just the hour and a half that you're in therapy. So it gets them thinking outside the room in terms of, how am I going to take care of myself? And that's kind of a boundary issue too. I'm not fully responsible for my client's recovery. I'm only responsible for creating a catalyst for change and maybe giving them some skill or some new concepts that they can deal with, like emotional time travel, or the idea of being able to articulate boundaries and identity and how those things are tied together. So my job is to give them information and skills. Their job is to apply all that stuff. So when you talk about what are you going to do for yourself in terms of self-care throughout the week, you're really encouraging to apply some of the learnings that they've acquired and to do something positive with it. So this is really a very, because it incorporates three really important issues, is often very central to the recovery process. Boundaries for survivors is absolutely fundamental. Trust, identity, these are all really big issues. So I spend a lot of time on this, giving people examples, maybe even role-playing. Okay, tell me some boundary. I want you to just practice telling me some boundary that's important to you. And then I might role-play reacting badly. And then I want you to insist that that boundary be respected. So sometimes that role-playing in the safety of the therapist's office makes it easier for them to go out and actually apply those boundaries somewhere else. You might say, okay, you don't want your roommate to smoke marijuana in the apartment. You want him to go outside. So what are you going to say to him? Well, would it be okay, or do you mind if maybe, well, do you think he's going to respect that? Well, maybe not. Let's try something else. Either keep your marijuana outside the apartment or move out. I'm not tolerating it anymore. How is that going to work? Probably not very well. But say, look, I don't choose to use marijuana. When you smoke in the apartment, I end up breathing your secondhand smoke, and that's really not okay with me. There's an ashtray out on the back porch. Just go out there, close the door, and smoke all you want. I don't care if you're high. I just don't want you smoking in the apartment. It's your choice to use marijuana. It's not my choice. So by having a rational, calm conversation with somebody that respects their needs and articulates your own, you're going to have a better chance of having finding a middle ground where you both feel happy about the agreements that you've made. So moving on to one of the other concepts here, EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. Thank you. Well, all of a sudden my mind went blank. And we don't know exactly why that works, but I think it's a bilateral stimulation, because what you do, there's a whole script that goes along with it. It's much too structured for me, so even though I've been trained in it, I don't use it very much unless the client really wants to try it out. But you have a script that you go through. Let's say that they've just shared a memory with you. So you've got this script in which you kind of explore that memory. When did it take place? Who was the person? What were you feeling at the time? What was going on for you? And then you do this mind movement thing. And one of the ways is to say, follow my fingers. But some of our older staff members are finding that their rotating cup in the arm would be getting sore, and they just couldn't keep that up. So we bought a light bar where they have these little LED lights that kind of move back and forth across the bar. You can also use pulse pads that they can hold on to that pulse alternatively. Headphones that click alternatively. You can also do tapping, where you tap on the client's knees. But because our clients are survivors of sexual abuse, physical contact can feel very intrusive, so we don't do that.